Tom, it's really good to see you. Today, we are breaking down 3 ways the debt ceiling showdown could affect your finances. So, US debt recently hit a record high $31 trillion. Looking at this gives me so much anxiety. So,
Yeah.
now Congress will have to vote whether to raise the debt limit again, fueling fears of default, which could have enormous consequences on the US economy, global stability, and our finances. So, let's talk through what's going on here. What is the debt ceiling?
Debt ceiling is the credit card limit. So, like your American Express or your Visa or MasterCard, you have a limit. The US government had a limit on what they were supposed to spend. And then in 2022, they spent $9.5 trillion more than they were allotted by the taxpayers of America.
Mhm.
And so now they've run out of money. Remember, the government fiscal year goes from October 1st to September 30th. So we're not even halfway through their fiscal year and they've run out of money. And so they're saying. We'll get into how they really are not in just a minute.
Yes. Yes.
But that's the whole theory or premise behind the debt ceiling argument.
Yeah, no, this is a really great conversation to have. And I think a lot of us are sitting at home wondering how it will affect us and whether or not, yeah, how can they keep raising it? Because Tommy, you're right. They've raised the debt limit 86 times since 1960. So let's dive in.
Yep.
For context, the last time Congress had a close call was back in 2011 when the debt stood at $14 trillion. Before defaulting, Congress did reach a deal, but not before the market dropped 14% in 4 weeks. So should people consider leaving the volatility of the market now?
That's a hard question to answer because if you leave the market now and the market does go down, whether it's 4%, 14%, or 40%, are you prepared to get back in? We've spoken on other interviews before about how if you get out of the market while the market's going down or when it's bottomed out, but you don't get back in those up days, you miss a lot of the gain in the market because typically when markets go down that quickly, they will bounce back up almost as quickly at some point. As you can see on the graph, even in the worst of times, even in the worst of market crashes, if you will, there's been an upside. Now, it might take a little time, but if you miss it, that could have just as devastating effect on your portfolio as being waiting it out and being in the market while it's going down. So,
Right.
there's never a right or wrong. It's always an appropriate or inappropriate answer. It's what's going to let you sleep at night. But I can tell you from an efficiency standpoint, if you miss those up days, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that's going to keep you up at night for sure.
Sure.
So, the second way that it could affect us is with surging borrowing costs because the default could push interest rates even higher, drastically affecting the cost of borrowing. So, what if I had planned on making a big purchase this year?
So interest rates are still going to go higher. Federal Reserve has already said that they're going to continue raising interest rates, maybe not as quickly as they did at the latter part of last year, but they're saying that they're going to go up. So if you have a big ticket item that you're going to be purchasing, maybe now is the time to do it before rates start going up. Now, let's address the first point that you were asking about in that question about the debt. We're not going to default. The U.S. has plenty of money, has plenty of cash flows. Matter of fact, the U.S. takes in $4.5 to $5 trillion a year of revenue. The interest payment that we have on our debt is $400 billion, which leaves a lot of money left over for all the other items like Social Security and Medicare. It's a false flag. People are trying to scare the American public about something that's just factually incorrect.
Mhm. Well, that's why I always value talking to you, Tommy, because it is, we hear these headlines and it is scary, especially when, all of this is kind of predicated on a really big variable if we default, right? But I want to ask one more scary question because this comes up all the time. If the government defaults on its debt, there could be a lapse in the $90 billion monthly Social Security payments made to 65 million people. But you just don't see that happening.
I don't see it happening. Again, when you're taking in $4.5 to $5 trillion a year continually, right, month after month, tax payments are coming in. I don't see it happening. And if the government were truly that concerned about it, why not take one of the 400 plus items that Rand Paul talks about in his speeches of wasted money? Like, hey, does taking a selfie improve your self-confidence? Why do we spend $1 million on such stupid items? So there's plenty of things out there that the government could stop making payments on, or stop funding, or limit the funding. That could take the place of a $90 billion a month Social Security payment to the people who deserve it.
Mm-hmm. So much to consider. I really do value, again, talking this through with you. If somebody, though, would like to talk through, as you mentioned, what's right for them, and maybe
Sure.
they are feeling anxious right now because of what they're hearing in the headlines, what's the best way to reach you?
What's appropriate for them. There's not a right or wrong.
Right.
It's what's
Thank
appropriate for you or inappropriate. You can always reach me, 973-394-0623, or send us an email, tjoconnell@internationalfinancial.com. You could also see our podcasts now on the Retire Happy podcast from Coast to Coast, which Aaron Kennedy was a recent guest on, with a great, we spoke for about 45 minutes. It was a great interview, lots of fun. So I hope people check that out as well.
I can't wait to hear it. I had a lot of fun. Did you have to trim me down a lot because I just kept asking you so many questions?
No, actually, there was very little trimming. So
Good.
It was a good interview.
Yeah, it really was. You guys do such a nice job. That's good to hear. All right, Tom, thank you very much.
Thanks, Aaron.